right. Wow. I mean, folks, what don't you guys see about what's going on here? I mean, this is insane. Eric Cantor, the majority leader yesterday, got his comeuppance. This is the guy who scrubbed his, and he's a Republican, so don't accuse me of being a Republican. The truth of the matter is I'm a patriot. I'm an American patriot. I believe in the Constitution, and that's it. I don't believe in party platforms. I don't believe in any of the lies they've been telling us for decades. For the last 150 years, the duopoly of Republican and Democrat have completely and utterly destroyed this country. And I couldn't give a rat's rear end for either one of them. Now, the press is all over us throwing the Tea Party around. Let me tell you something about the Tea Party. They abandoned this guy. They didn't support him at all. They didn't. His name is David Brat. B-R-A-T. David Brat. He ran in Virginia. He ran with less than $250,000. Eric Cantor ran with $5 million. And this guy whooped his butt. 66 to 44%. Yesterday, they were anticipating that Brandt would be lucky if he got 28% of the vote, which first and foremost ought to tell you something. Anytime an incumbent is challenged by a no-name and gets 28%, who gets 28% of the vote or 30% of the vote, that's a stunning victory for the no-name, especially in this country where people don't pay any attention. They don't know what the heck they're doing. They're just voting for a name they recognize. By the way, for the record, for those of you that constantly give the refrain, but that it's not my congressman, it's all the other ones, you're operating under delusion. It is not all the others. It is yours. Your congressman is the problem. 535 of them got to go. All 535. Fire them all. Senate, House, makes no difference. That and all of their staffs. You know why? Because if you put brand new people in and you give them the same staff that Eric Cantor and John Boehner and John McCain and Lindsey Graham and Claire McCaskill and Roy Blunt have, you're going to have the same problem because those are really the people who are running the country. They're the ones who are telling these idiots how to act. They're just actors on a stage, but they're being directed from behind. And they're being motivated and paid by lobbyists who are bribing them. And that's the only thing that makes this government operate. Money. Bribery money. So you can't keep the staff from all of these traitors because the staff is treasonous. They're the ones who tell them, yeah, what the public feedback is, what our polls are telling us. This is how you should act, Mr. Cantor. This guy scrubbed his immigration stance off of his website 2 weeks ago. I talked about it. I did a show about it, or I mentioned it during a show. Because he knew. He knew. Now, 2 weeks ago, it's funny, and it's insightful. I was listening to an interview last night. By the way, Sean Hannity did an interview and spoke to this guy. They're trying to call him some kind of a right-wing extremist kook and all of that. Let me tell you something. This guy has perhaps one of the most articulate arguments I've seen. And you know what he said? He said, all I did was stand on the platform that the Republicans espouse, but don't follow. Now, yesterday, Salon is ultra far left. I mean, these guys these guys are like they praise PETA. Here's what their headline was. Drudge's new fixation. Eric Cantor and the right's frenzied paranoia. I want you to hear what propaganda sounds like because when you hear this, and it's a brief article, I'm going to read it to you because it is stunningly creative. All right? And it is propaganda. Here's what it says. Drudge's new fixation. Eric Cantor and the right's frenzied paranoia. Now, I want you to listen to this because this got published yesterday in light of last night's news. Eric Cantor should beat his primary challenger tonight, but the anti-immigration crowd has already made its point. So they show this on the top. They say, as a hobby, interesting how he uses the phrase, as a hobby, scanning the Drudge Report for signals of what the rabbit hole the conservative brain has gone down at any given point, has lost some of its novelty over the years. That first sentence ought to tell you everything that you need to know about a guy who writes like that. Still, it was hard not to notice this morning that Drudge, in the prime upper left real estate of its site, had listed a full 14 links regarding immigration and a supposed impending push for amnesty among the House Republican leadership. Personal favorite of mine, kids complaining burritos they're being fed are making them sick. That was the headline used. Now, let's just analyze this for a quick moment. Drudge did have 14 headlines up there yesterday, all about immigration, because everybody in the country, except the Ministry of Propaganda, that's trying desperately to keep you, including Fox News, I might add, from knowing what's really happening on the border and that we are under assault. This is a flippin' invasion, ladies and gentlemen. The truth of the matter is, we are seeing an unprecedented torrent of these people pouring over the border. This guy's trying to minimize it and make it seem as if it's all conspiracy theory talk. It's not conspiracy theory. We're using the words of the traitors themselves. So he goes on to say, what gives on this sleepy Tuesday? We learned last week, after all, that the House wouldn't hold any immigration-related votes in June. That leaves the leadership a few weeks in July to pass the unicorn-like secret amnesty that's not in its interest to pass. Why is it so vital to whip up the conservative base about immigration reform on today of all days? Maybe something about Tuesday, primary season. It's a Tuesday during primary season. Oh, we get it. House Majority Leader Eric Cantor's primary is today. Cantor is facing a challenge from the right in the form of a little-known college economics professor named David Brat. Brat has taken all the easy leadership sellout hits on Cantor, such as his support for raising the debt ceiling, meaning Cantor's support. If you're wondering why a college economic professor would criticize someone for raising the debt ceiling, it's because Brat is what we'd call a special economics professor. He's the director of something called the BB&T, Moral Foundations of Capitalism, at the Randolph-Macon College, funded by a rich nutter who doesn't think the kids are reading enough Ayn Rand these days. This guy is a professional journalist, or is he a propaganda minister? I mean, I'm asking you. What? Where is the basis for this kind of writing being published in Salon? This isn't journalism. This is a hit piece, propaganda piece of trash. You see, here's the problem, folks. And this guy, Jim Newell, he's the author, by the way. You got to realize exactly how far down the rabbit hole these traitors have gone, and how far and how desperate they are to attribute or to malign or insinuate or injure or doom or whatever anyone on any side that is not part of the liberal, diatribe and the diarrhea that pours forth from these people. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or have a history or political science degree to realize what kind of a piece of trash this is. All you've got to do is read it yourself. And the simple truth is that with the way this guy has written this thing, it is literally an attempt to, and listen, he couldn't be more wrong. Proof positive was Cantor got his butt kicked 66-44. 66-44. Now, look, I can't even finish reading the article because they're throwing and they're trying to allude to the fact that the Tea Party is part of the program here. Let me tell you something, folks. The Tea Party abandoned this guy. They didn't help him. They really didn't. The Tea Party did not help this dude. He had $250,000 running against an incumbent who spent $5 million. I listened to him last night on Hannity's program. I saw him do a live interview. And the guy was rational. He was logical. He was reasonable. Everything he said made sense. He had nothing in there that would lead you to believe he was some kind of an extremist. He didn't throw anything out there about about anything that was off the table. In fact, he sounded to me like a Republican sounded to me 30 years ago. This guy, Jewel, who now has egg all over his face because he made a prediction that Cantor would come out of this on top. Today, the headline on Salon is Cantor fall brings a huge lesson. The GOP pays attention to its base because it votes in primaries, and the Democratic base is ignored because it doesn't. You got to be kidding me. Then, the next headline right below that is Tea Party eats its own. Why Cantor's right-wing obstruction wasn't enough. Folks, this is stuff which you could see coming right out of Goebbels' mouth. And forget the fact that he's a Nazi. He's just a worldwide, world-renowned, best-known propagandist who was able to accomplish the impossible, getting an entire country to follow fascism and treason, self-treason, self-immolation, self-destruction, national suicide. And that's exactly what Salon and Huffington Post and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and all of this mainstream media is about. The truth of the matter is, folks, Cantor got his due and now he's out. All we need to do is follow it with the rest of them. And I got to tell you, this election in 2014 isn't going to save a damn person. It's not going to save this country. Even if we were to be able to oust every one of them, the truth of the matter is, until you get rid of Barack Obama and place him under arrest, we're doomed as a nation. We cannot have 2.5 more years of this guy. We cannot. He needs to be arrested and removed from office. And he needs to be arrested for clear violations that, not an impeachment. An impeachment is not a punishment. And in impeachment, there's no assurance that he'll be removed from Congress. From office. And we cannot wait until 2014's election in November to then begin the process, because when they get that, let's assume for argument's sake that they do get the Senate, okay? Let's just play this out for a minute. They get the Senate. Then nobody gets input into the office until January. Then they need 6 months or 8 months to get acclimated, and they're all timid. We don't know what to do. We don't know what the rules are. We have to learn the ropes from the traitors who were here before us, blah, 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 blah. Now we're a year and a quarter away from 2016, and guess what happens? Everybody says, well, we're so close now, Meanwhile, the country is, listen, I got to tell you, we're not making 2016 no matter what happens right now. At the current present situation, as it sits right now, without a drastic, massive change, we will not make 2016 as a nation. We will be bankrupt. The entire economy will collapse. We will be overrun with illegals. And that's assuming we don't have some kind of a false flag to generate and motivate the government to institute martial law. I'm not a crackpot conspiracy theorist. I'm just a pragmatic realist who's looking at the future, and I see exactly where the road goes. That's not conspiracy theory, folks. This is just an observation. I'm an observationist. I'm a forward observer. That's it. And you know what? I have plenty of history over the course of the last 70 months to make my case. And I have past history over the last 25 years to make my case. I have history over the past 100 years to make my case. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not some right-wing extremist. I'm not right-wing. What I am is a constitutional American citizen. I believe that the Constitution has been shredded, demoralized. We no longer honor or follow it. We have a shadow government running and operating our nation. It is a government of fascism. It has been in place for decades. Only now is it showing its face. The mask is being removed, and you're beginning to finally see it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth. And everything else that you hear, everything else that the mainstream media feeds you, everything else is propaganda, whitewash, and lies. It is brainwashing and intimidation. It is intended to get you to go back to sleep and not recognize the danger right in front of your face. We live in a fascist corporatocracy. Corporations and the multinationals, the transnationals, have been owning, bribing, and abusing us, utilizing our Congress and our military for decades now. This isn't news. Now the only question is, how far can it go before they recognize that we recognize, so then they got to shut the fist, the steely iron fist of totalitarianism. And I don't care what ism you call it. It makes no difference to me, because I know what it is, irrespective. The definition fits, irrespective of what word you type on top of it. Eric Cantor deserved to go. How Lindsey Graham withstood is beyond my comprehension. And what's his face down there in Tennessee? I mean, you got to be kidding me. Mitch McConnell. You know, Eric Cantor was arrogant enough to think this guy couldn't hurt him, and he got whooped. Mitch McConnell fought against his independent with like a lion, and he beat the crap out of that guy, utilizing an enormous amount of money. He took it seriously. That makes him an even more formidable enemy, though, folks. You see, at least Eric Cantor was arrogant enough to let his pride get in the way, and he lost his race as a result of it. Mitch McConnell, however, has no pride. You know why? Because he's been in there even longer than this guy. This guy's been in there for 14 years. But Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, these guys are longtime players. They have no pride. They will stop at nothing. They will stoop lower than a human being could imaginably go. They will crawl underneath a snake's belly to maintain their position of power. I'm telling you, this country is in a complete and utter total shambles. We live in a fascist police state run as a corporatocracy. And anything that you hear or see that belies that, watch and follow it back, and you will see it comes to money. It comes to power. It comes to the people that want you to be fooled. Unless we remove Barack Obama from power, and we cannot do it through impeachment. So therefore, we are down to one method: arrest. He needs to be arrested. Did you hear what I said? He needs to be arrested. He needs to be arrested and removed, because there are no other alternatives for us. There are no other solutions for us. There's nowhere else for us to go. You see, our back is already past the wall. There's nowhere we can turn. We can't back up anymore. You know the policy of the Castle Doctrine? Castle Doctrine says when someone comes in and invades your home, you don't have an obligation to retreat. Now, many states don't have a Castle Doctrine, but the principle that they give you is that you have to retreat, even though it is against your own best interest. You must retreat, and you can never use deadly force to protect and defend yourself, right? That's their theory. Castle Doctrine says the opposite. It says you have no obligation to retreat. Someone enters your home, pow, it's on, it's over, case closed. And there's only one story to tell, right? Ben Shapiro, he just wrote a book. And I got to tell you, there are some things I don't like about him, but he's the editor-at-large for Breitbart. And this book is called The People versus Barack Obama, the criminal case against the Obama administration, which he claims is a criminal enterprise like the mafia. Now, I don't care whether you like that mental image or not. It makes no difference to me. The point is this. His argument is we need to remove the president from power, and we need to remove him by any means necessary, including a citizen civil action against him, because we can't get the Department of Justice to do it. Who's going to do it? We can't allow the military to do it. then it's a military coup. So where do we go? Here's what he has to say. There are multiple charges. I mean, everything from Benghazi, which there are violations of the Espionage Act and the Arms Export Control Act, to the IRS, in which there are violations of IRS law, to witness tampering on multiple counts. There are tons of charges that can be brought against the Obama administration. But I'm arguing here, but what I'm arguing here is this is really a criminal enterprise like the mafia. Basically, President Obama never has to give a direct order. All he has to do is sit atop the chain of command and let all of his minions do whatever it is that he wants. This is why the RICO Act was created originally. It is to wrap all of this kind of stuff into a bundle and then allow for prosecution. That would mean Attorney General Eric Holder would have to do something. Now, the truth is, you and I, all of us know that's never going to happen. Eric Holder is never going to prosecute Barack Obama. That's like asking a child to prosecute his mother. It ain't happening, folks. And if it does happen, it will be a sham of an operation intended to fail. I mean, a prosecution that would be sabotaged from inside, like a basketball player who agrees before the game to take $25,000 to throw the game, like a boxer who agrees that on the 8th punch I'm going down, even if the only glance is off the side of my chin. Here's what needs to happen. Here's what needs to happen. A citizen's grand jury that needs to get before the Supreme Court and obtain an indictment, a criminal and civil indictment against Barack Obama, and have him arrested. Now, look, I know a lot about the law, but I'm not a legal scholar by any stretch of the imagination. But I got to tell you, there are some very, very good legal people here in this country. And if it is not within the boundaries of the law to accomplish this in some way, shape, or form, then it's going to have to just be a massive civil disobedient uprising that says, we're done. We're done. Okay, you want to leave him in office? That's fine. But we're taking all the power away because we're stopping the flow of money. Have a nice day. You all do what you want, but you're not going to spend our money to accomplish our own demise. I've outlined that strategy 1,000 times for you guys. If you don't know about it, go back and look. You got over 1,000 videos up on YouTube. But whatever the strategy is, I got to tell you something. It better be implemented really, really fast. I can't tell you how fast I mean. I mean, like before this radio program is done, before you stop watching this video in 2 minutes and 25 seconds. That's how fast. Our nation is just finished. And the only thing that we can do at this point is attempt to restore it to a semblance of lawfulness. There is no operation of law. There's no rule of law anymore. Nowhere. Only when it applies to you. And then it's really not law. Then it's this subjective, selective prosecution to punish enemies. That's not law, folks. That's not law. That's treason. That's fascism. That's dictatorship. That's oppression. But it sure ain't law. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Iraq. Mosul fell yesterday, the other day. With the seizure of the airport, they got U.S. fighter jets, they got choppers, they got ammunition, heavy weaponry, artillery, and yesterday they robbed their Federal Reserve Bank, and they got $429 billion, including untold, unaccounted amounts of gold. And by the way, guess where that money came from? That was our money. That was our money, ladies and gentlemen. That was money the United States had put up. That's not money Iraq had. Iraq had nothing. Saddam Hussein looted the country of $50 billion, which has never really been recovered. That was our taxpayer money. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to America's Voice Now. If you want to communicate with me directly, you can. You can email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. Listen, last chance. if you have an opportunity for me to come down and speak to a group that you head or a participant of, you want me to speak at your church, I will lay it on the line in a way that no one else has ever done for you before, or your group. But I'm telling you, I'm not gonna shy away from the harsh statements that have to be made. But somebody's got to say this stuff, folks. I'll be right back. Mike at americasvoicenow.org.